I think all of us recognize that these kinds of terrible, tragic events are happening with too much regularity for us not to do some soul searching and to examine additional ways that we can reduce violence.
Well, that was the president yesterday responding to questions about pushing for more gun control measures in the wake of yet another senseless mass shooting. He called, as I said, for soul searching, but so far, not a lot else. Now, we don't know yet if this latest shooting at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin on Sunday will change in any way public opinion, let alone national dialogue on gun control. But here is what we do know about the alleged gunman. His name, Wade Michael Page, white male in his 40s, an Army veteran, an alleged neo-Nazi, who had been the leader of a racist white power band. His weapon of choice, a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, purchased legally at a gun shop just days prior to the shooting. And now, new revelations that all of this may or could have, if possible, been avoided here. There's no real fingers of blame to be pointed here, but the FBI reportedly had been looking into Wade's alleged support for domestic terror groups, but ultimately decided they didn't have enough evidence to open a full investigation. Okay, so we know the president says it's time for soul searching, but some say, and it's a growing number, those are just words.
We're survivors of the Tucson shooting.
Our leaders gave us a moment of silence then.
But they haven't given us a plan. President Obama,
Governor Romney.
We demand a plan because 48,000 Americans will be murdered with guns during the next president's term.
That's 3 Aurora shootings every day.
Now, when you talk about putting your money where your mouth is, there may be complaints about Mayor Bloomberg, but that's not one of them. The ad here from the mayor-led group here, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, it was released to the press on Sunday morning, less than an hour before the shootings in Wisconsin, obviously in the aftermath of most recently Aurora, Colorado, before what we saw this past weekend. But it's not just our nation's mayors who are speaking out. You got elected officials, most recently today in New Jersey. They gathered around to promote new legislation that would force people to buy ammo face-to-face rather than online, like the alleged Colorado shooter James Holmes did.
If it's a face-to-face transaction, at least the culprit, the would-be culprit, knows that somebody's going to recognize him. Enough is enough. Second Amendment rights, fine, but common sense needs to prevail.
And guns with magazines of more than 10 bullets are not guns, they're weapons.
Now, among the elected officials there in New Jersey today pushing for stronger gun control measures was Representative Rush Holt, and I spoke with him right after that press conference. And joining us now to explain the latest push for common sense gun laws, Representative Rush Holt from the great state of New Jersey. Congressman, thanks for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Richard, good to be with you.
You know, I want to talk about the initiative you and Senators Lautenberg and McCarthy, Lautenberg and Menendez and others have done here. But what I really wanted to get into with you was first, you had President Obama saying that we as a nation need to do some soul searching to figure out where we go next on this. Mayor Bloomberg and others have said, we've heard the words and the condolences, but we need to have specifics and really leadership from the two men who want to be president. I know not to expect a lot out of Mitt Romney, given the connection with the NRA, but are you expecting more than you've heard from our president right now?
You know, I can assure you that if the Senate passes the legislation that's introduced by Senator Lautenberg and co-sponsored by Senator Menendez, the House passes the legislation of Representative Carolyn McCarthy and me, Rush Holt, and others, the president will sign it. And there are a number of things we can do. Senator Lautenberg, Representative McCarthy, and I are calling for an end to mail-order ammunition purchases. It should be face-to-face. An end to multi-ammunition clips and assault weapons. Those serve no purpose except to kill a lot of people quickly. This isn't for hunting, this isn't for sportsmen, this isn't for collectors, this is for large-scale killing. So those are things we should do. In the current Congress, I'm pleased to say that I already passed. I shepherded through legislation along with Carolyn McCarthy the only gun safety legislation to pass in this Congress to strengthen the criminal background checks. But we need to do more. The gun shows are an enormous loophole. And whatever we do in New Jersey has some sensible gun laws. Those laws are undercut by weak laws in other states. A lot of the guns that are used in illegal activities here in New Jersey come from other states. So this needs to be done on a national level.
If the president pulled you aside and he said, hey, Rush, tell me, will it be a political winner or loser if I come out in front of the American public and say, I'm calling for an assault weapons ban to be reinstated, one that was sunset in 2004. I'm calling here for the end to the loophole that you guys talked about these mass ammo sales that you can do anonymously. And this is specifically what I want for new background checks. Would that cost him the election, or would that actually get him more votes than maybe he'd be surprised to hear?
Oh, no, it wouldn't cost. No, if the president took me aside and asked me that, I think we would be talking on the same page. He understands that, as do I, that our first responsibility is to protect people and then provide as best we can for their welfare. Furthermore, it's clear from the opinion polls and the political prognosticators and calculators that the public, except for some right-wing, let's call them NRA types, National Rifle Association types, the public gets it. The public doesn't want assault weapons on the street, and nobody understands this better than the police. Sure, this is a winner. It's a political winner, but more important, it's a winner for the people of the country. The president gets that. But Congress has not sent him the legislation.
You've personally lobbied to get votes even across the aisle from Republicans to sign on, and you actually got, as you said, a piece of landmark legislation through. You don't even have to put names on it. Have Republicans said to you, Congressman, listen, I'd love to be up for this, but if I do this, the NRA is going to primary me?
Yes, some have said that to me. The Republicans, even the, there are no moderate Republicans left. They were all defeated in 2010 by the Tea Party folks. But even those who are not quite so far to the right have told me that they fear a primary from the right.
All right, that conversation earlier today, as I mentioned, with Congressman Holt. All right, let's bring in our panel on this. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist, author, New York State Senator, Republican Greg Ball, and our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. Guys, thank you very much. I put the same question to you that I said to the Congressman. Senator, if in Albany, or for that matter, pick a state house, they tried to, and New York's got tough gun laws right now, tried to push through tougher gun laws, is there a palpable threat that the NRA here would make life difficult for any sitting Republican who did that?
At the end of the day, if you have members that are going to try to eviscerate the Second Amendment, the NRA would and should hold those members accountable.
Let's be specific. The AR-15 that the guy in Colorado used to walk through that theater and kill those people, do we think that's eviscerating the Second Amendment if we take that away from the public as a right to own?
You know, I think that, look, heart goes out during tragedy like this to the victims and their families, and I think that the issue is above and beyond any specific tragedy. There's certainly a much larger issue when it comes to common sense reforms, whether it be making sure that guns don't end up in the hands of those who have orders of protection, for instance, or a specific criminal background.
Or guys like on terror watch
there are certain, there are certain common sense measures that can be done. I think there's a larger question to be asked of why is somebody who's connected with a neo-Nazi organization, who I don't know about, as a former veteran, it upsets me to think that this guy was a vet. I don't know what his military background was.
Well, he was dismissed. Apparently, he was drinking while on duty. He was reduced in rank and removed. But if I can come back a second, assault weapons. We had the laws in the books. I'm not even pretending that they worked. Like all of a sudden, gun violence disappeared. But the more practical question that people ask to say, I have a right to bear arms, the Second Amendment says so. But there is a common sense approach that says, why should somebody be able to legally buy the kind of gun that he had? You saw heroic action in Colorado, you saw heroic action in Wisconsin. Just from a practical level, the guy wouldn't have been able to get off as many rounds here if that gun wasn't legal in Colorado before the police got there. Why does somebody need to have that unless they're
Richard,
really in the military?
I know that we disagree on this issue, and that's
no, but this is a common sense question. On that.
And I'll give you a common sense answer. A lot of people who come from your side on this issue say, well, you have a right to to go deer hunting. The Second Amendment isn't only for hunters. The Second Amendment is to make sure that we have a citizenry that, if they so choose, is armed, can defend themselves, defend their families. It's very specific, and it doesn't say you're only allowed to have a firearm if you're a deer hunter.
Well,
it's not just about.
And I know you're a student of history, Senator. When that was written, we didn't have a thing like a police force or a National Guard or the other things that we have now. Protect ourselves from whom? Are we telling us citizens should arm up and get ready because the government's out?
You're comfortable to feel that
Aren't
the
you?
government, that Big Brother, is going to protect you. There are many people in this country who are not as comfortable with big government and Big Brother, and would rather have the opportunity to protect themselves and their families. And New York City has some of the greatest, some of the strongest gun laws in the country. And if you compare it to places that are maybe less stringent in places like Texas, the crime rates in New York City are through the roof, where in other communities are not. So you can draw parallels all day long. The other point is that this demented individual, who's a sick person, probably could have went on the internet and found fertilizer and gone to that very same location. So I mean, I think you have to go after the criminal, and you have to go after the illegal firearms that are used, illegal guns that are used in over 90% of the crimes.
But you haven't answered why somebody needs an assault weapon.
Look, I am the Second Amendment provides you the right to protect yourself, your family.
Okay. Does somebody have a right, though, just so we can find at least where we're disagreeing, should somebody have a right to buy a bazooka in America?
Well, you're talking about, Richard, I mean, you're talking in the extremes. And
well, I'm sorry, but an AR-15, and again, we've had guys in here from law enforcement who say, why should our police be outgunned here by people in the general public who are often, unfortunately, unhinged? Why should body armor be sold to the general public? Why should you be able to buy unlimited ammo? Again, if you want a right to defend yourself,
sure.
Why can't good and decent people sit down and find some practical limits where you can still own a gun, protect your household, go hunting if you want. If you want an assault weapon and keep it at the range, at the shooting range, God bless you.
We have a ton of practical limits and common sense legislation, and even beyond in the state of New York. Beyond.
But right it's in the state of New York. It doesn't extend to all 50 states.
Well, maybe some of those other states should take a look at the legislation that's been passed in New York that is common sense. But we do also have bills by some of the typical legislators who are totally anti-Second Amendment that are literally search and seizure bills that would have the state police going door to door and knocking down doors and taking out some of these now legal firearms. True,
but
Richard,
you see, when we go down
this
there,
is the legislation
nobody's
that's on the books.
Suggesting really that we're
Actually,
going to have a kick down your doors
and these
dead
bills,
of night and do
Richard,
gun grabs.
guess what? You want to talk about very seriously? There's a search and seizure bill that passed the New York State Assembly, written by a member who probably couldn't find their way outside of Manhattan, wouldn't know the back end of a white-tailed deer from the front end of a thoroughbred horse, and actually has a search and seizure bill that they don't even understand the bill, and would actually direct the state police to go door to door and take firearms that are legal now. And you can shake your head, but this is the reality. So are there common sense measures that can be done?
Can I tell you the consequence of what happened? Last night, I don't know if you guys saw this, in Columbus, Ohio. You have, I don't know if you ever had some of your jobs as kids, I worked at a movie theater. You had basically a kid like me in high school, sees a guy come in with a bag, to a Batman movie, of course, and calls somebody who's an off-duty cop. They pull the guy aside. The guy had brought in guns and knives to see a movie because now he was worried that somebody might be packing heat, and he wanted to be able to protect himself as well. We're going down a line here where we're basically sending a message to people, listen, this is the way it is. 50,000 people roughly die every year in this country because of guns. So either you arm yourself, or maybe be like states and let people bring guns into bars and all the rest, but go for it. I don't know about you. That scared me almost as much as what I saw, that people are now deciding this is the proper course of action to take. Is this really in the best interest of public safety?
Richard, how many people die from auto accidents every single year?
But we can do better than that, Senator, really.
So you want to outlaw cars?
No, but here's what we did.
How about we put everybody in
but if you want to use the car analogy, and I know we're heavy guys, not everybody can drive a car. You got to first go in and show you're proficient enough to handle the car, and you got to pass a road test. I got to go through a background check. There's a waiting period as they go through, wait a minute, to find out that I don't have criminal records pending against me. Got to do an eye test. I got to do all these different things. Then I got to secure insurance to be able to drive the car here as well. And they've also put safety guidelines, like seatbelts.
You also can't drive a Formula One car or an Indy car on the highway. You can't drive a NASCAR car.
And
If you think that's intense,
but it's
you should
right
see what it takes to
actual...
get a pistol permit in certain parts
Okay,
of
but we're not
of New
talking
York
about a pistol
and the
permit,
entire
okay?
state.
I'm talking about an assault weapon. I'm just trying to find a place we can start. And it seems like this is where we run up against it, Don, before we even get going. We can't even get out of the garage here, to figure out another car
Senator,
analogy.
how should people who are concerned about the proliferation of guns, what should they do to make themselves feel safer?
The first
what
thing
can
we
they
should do is
besides
actually,
buy
the
more
first thing we
guns?
should do as a state is, when politicians jump on a tragedy and start trying to pull legislation that they've been pushing for years and use the tragedy to pass legislation, there's a problem. What we should do is work together.
Events as they happen.
What we should do is work together to go after the trafficking in illegal firearms and go after criminals. The vast majority of crimes are committed using illegal firearms, and we should go after the criminals to simply pass more laws that are going to make it harder for law-abiding gun owners, firearm owners, to either, whether it be hunt, protect their families, or enjoy the Second Amendment, is not the answer. The answer is go after the criminals, go after the illegal firearms, and in the instance where you can pass common sense legislation to take the guns out of hands.
And I hear you, except I've gotten on this show, you guys have been with me, we've had police chiefs, mayors from cities who say, I got no problem with Trenton or Albany. The laws in the books in my states work. But the problem is you got an iron pipeline coming from Pennsylvania, coming from Virginia, North Carolina, you name it here, guns flowing in here. So whatever laws we have in the books, if other states are lax in terms of who can buy, how much they can buy, and how they can buy, then it doesn't matter what we have here. So until there's a call for some uniformity.
But the vast majority of those crimes that are committed using illegal firearms. I mean, that's an FBI statistics. It's like 95–96% of the crimes that are committed using illegal firearms.
But they're illegal because people are buying them illegally, then doing straw sales. And because we're not having the same waiting periods, okay, and background checks in other states that you may have in New York, it becomes New York's problems because they come to our streets. I mean, listen, we're going to go in a circle on this one, but I gotta think we've had a lot of debates of a lot of other things. There's got to be a way that both sides can be comfortable. You can have a right to bear an arm, but it's not an unlimited privilege. And I see at least there's one area we can't agree on. If it fits in one state but doesn't fit in the other 49, it's never going to work. You got to have uniformity here. And I know we're not going to solve that tonight.